Welcome to H2K Infosys. H2K Infosys is a e-verify business based in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. We provide 100% job-oriented, instructor-led, face-to-face, true live online software training programs. It also includes access to cloud test lab with software tools. We provide live project for you to work on. We also provide assistance with mock interviews, resume preparation and review, and job placement assistance. H2K Infosys is trusted by so many students across the world. H2K Infosys provides world-class services in IT training with real-time project work for corporates and individuals, special IT training for MS students in the United States, software design, development, QA manual and automation, performance testing and maintenance, IT staff augmentation, job placement assistance, and tech support.
Another pattern we want to learn is observer pattern. So observer is what? Observer is, now till now you learned few things, like you learned listeners, you learned filters. Basically listeners, not filters. Okay. So what does these filters do? So let's take an example of our context attribute listener. So whenever an attribute gets added, okay, somebody gets notified, right? So this notification is, if you want to implement this notification pattern, okay, this is observer pattern. So there is a class which needs notification for any change, right? So if that class needs a notification for change, then definitely we need to implement observer pattern. So observer pattern is created for that. So how we create observer pattern? So let's take an example for that. So first thing you do is observe. Little bit tricky, little bit hard to implement, but don't worry about it. We can go through it. I'll not tell you observer first. I will tell you. Yeah. So let's take a price information. Now this is the information generally is which needs to be communicated to all the stores. Okay. Now whenever there is a change in price information, I need to send, or every store who needs price information should get that update, right? Observer pattern is used in all sorts of applications. Whenever you need to see a change in a property, now it can be a price, it can be a stock, it can be anything. It can be change in the level, okay? It can be an expiry date of a medicine, okay? It can be order, absolutely, okay? So everything you will see observer pattern. So if you need to see a change in any kind of data, you will be using observer pattern. So now we created a class called a price information, and we need to send this particular price information, not send though, all the store who subscribe, okay, I will use this word subscribe to this price information will get the changes, okay. So now what is the what is the best method it has? So first thing is it will have, let me tell you first one by one. It has a list of observers. So let's see what is observer. So observer is a class which needs an update, okay, which needs an update. So he is observing for a change, okay. This is the class. And who is observer here? Store. So we will not go to that yet. Let's see one by one. So price information, as this is an information and information is observed by observer, okay, we have to maintain list of observers. Okay, who are all interested in this information? Who are all interested in this information? Okay, so we will have add, remove for these classes who are interested. So observers. So we have add observer which take an observer class. Okay, and it says that observer add observer. It actually adds that particular class into observer list. Okay, and removes it. Fine. Now get state is the method which will give you latest information. This is not a important method. What is important is getting something is not. If you set a new price information, then all the observers should know. Isn't that correct? So all the observers should know. So in the set, you will have price info plus you will have a notify observer method. And what does that do? It actually gets all the entire list of observer and it will just call update this. Means update price information. Okay. Now let's see what is observer and how it is created. So observer is an interface. It has only one method, update. Okay, update subject. What is the information? Price information is the subject. If you see, subject is the right information which is required by observer. Okay. Now if you see store has this update method which will get a new information, a new whatever value we set, a new price information, and it will update to all the stores. Okay, it will update to all the stores. Let's see a demo. Now I created two stores here, store 101, store 102. These are two stores and these are observers. Okay, and I also created price information. Okay, now I just added this particular store as a subscriber to this price information. Okay, see here, add observer, and I also added another observer and these stores. Okay, and now whenever I say set state washer is $300, all both the stores will get to know about it. If you want to see that, let me check what this guys do. Okay, it prints it. Okay, it prints it, so it's fine. So let's see how it works. Okay, let me bring this code. So 11. Okay, store. Okay, these two stores are created. Now I am adding these two stores as observer to this subject, whatever subject you have. Okay, if you want to see that for a list, it will have two stores now. Okay, so both the stores are in a list now. Now as soon as it says set state washer $300, see what is going to happen. Both the stores will receive that information. Both the stores. Okay, and as soon as I say washer is $400, then again both the stores will receive that information. So as soon as you change the price, as soon as you set a new price for an item, all the stores will receive that information with the help of observer pattern. Okay, there is a question coming in. What's the difference between list equals to new array list and array list equals to new array list? Nothing. There is no difference in that. It's normal customary that we use. Interface equals to okay, you got the answer. Awesome. There is no issue. Interface equals to class. That's generally we do that. There is no new thing in that. Awesome. So this is observer. Okay. Now what next is? Let's see a sequence here. What sequence we have? should have prototype pattern after that. Yes, prototype pattern. So what is prototype pattern? Prototype is creating a duplicate, creating a prototype, creating a clone. Let's see a discussion. Prototype pattern refers to creating a duplicate object, keeping performance in mind. So consider that. So when this prototype pattern is used. Now, I told you a nice example about product list. Okay. And this product list is actually a very heavy object. Okay. So now what I'm doing is I'm creating a product list. And it has all products, literally all products. And if I weigh this object, it will be, let's say, 4.5 MB object. And for loading this object from the database, it takes 17 seconds. Okay, and I use this because all the store uses it. And if all the store hits the database for that, then that will be a big problem. Okay, everybody uses this. Now, if a particular object is that heavy, if a particular object needs that much time, okay, it also utilizes your database resources, also utilizes your connections, because you are not loading a single database, you are loading through some of the products are from Mexico, some are from Canada, some are from US, some are actually coming from China, all the products list is here. So that's why you are contacting to, let's say, n number of databases, creating one very heavy object which is cumbersome to create it again. Okay, and now I want a similar list called as purchase order list, and this purchase order is from Best Buy to other company. Okay, so Best Buy is sending it to China. This is purchase order list, and I want 80% or let's say 25% of items from this guy. Okay, so from this guy, what is beneficial? Should I create a clone of this, which clone, or again contact all the databases, again waste this much time and create a similar kind of object for this? Create a clone, absolutely. So what we can do is simply create a clone of that object, use this object as a prototype. So whenever we do that, we actually implement a prototype pattern. So prototype pattern is suggesting that you have something which is giving you a proper shape, proper prototype of that object, then use that object as a prototype and create your own object. So only changes will be, so you will load this. This might be 100,000 products, and you might need 25,000. But getting it from the database is too cumbersome. So load all 100,000 here, and then reduce those 25,000. Okay, reduce 75,000 and achieve your 25,000. This operation is much easier than accessing 7 databases and waiting for 17 seconds and loading 4.5 MB, right? So that's why we should use prototype pattern. Okay, so let's see a small example of prototype pattern. Okay, so we have two things here, heavy object and heavy object provider. So this is a heavy object. Okay, heavy object has an instance, heavy object provider has an instance of heavy object, and it will also give you a get object method. Where to use prototype in real industry? I told you an example in retail. Okay, so this is example from retail industry. Okay, prototype is typically altered to fit your needs. Absolutely, you need to change the prototype according to your needs. Right now, I told you that you will have these 25,000 items only. So you have to reduce those 75,000. So whatever you want to use, you have to reduce. You have to make the changes accordingly. But you are not doing all that thing which you did for product. Okay. So product is a prototype, or entire functionality of the framework is entire functionality of the framework is prototype pattern. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So this heavy object provider is actually, let's consider this as a product list now. So this provider object we just created to implement a prototype pattern. So this prototype pattern, this heavy object is an object which is returned. So see here, get object, and it does nothing. It has the instance of this object. Every time you ask get object, it will return a clone of it. So you have your own copy of it, and that's it. Okay. So there is no huge magic here. There is nothing which is multiple class implementation as such. This provider will create a clone of this particular object, and it will provide to any object whoever asks it. Okay, that's it. There is no magical thing, but the concept is important. Okay, and this concept is used not very widely though, because it's not at all recommended to create such a heavy object, but if you do not have any choice. Okay, and I will tell you an example of heavy object. Really, if you see, like right now we haven't searched about Spring, we haven't talked about Spring, but there is a something, if you know about this, then there is a thing called as Spring context. Okay, in Hibernate we use session factory, right? So these are heavy objects once created. Okay, and whenever Hibernate uses it, whenever Spring uses it, if you need to create another session factory, then generally it uses this pattern prototype. And if you are able to open Spring code, and if you have Spring context, and Spring has many Spring context. Okay, like file path, like we're gonna see that anyway. Okay, so I mean to say Spring framework uses prototype. Absolutely, Spring framework uses lot of stuff. Okay, so Spring framework uses lot of stuff in between, like prototype. Spring also gives you singleton. Okay, so becoming a slate to be disadvantage of prototype design. Yes, there are disadvantages of prototype design. First thing is you will not be able to. First thing is you will not be able to do all the changes which you needed. Consider in practical, I don't find a real example for that though, but you actually have to make the changes on the object. That's first thing. Second thing is, now what you're doing, think about this. You have, I told you, 4.5 MB object here. You are cloning it 9 MB. Okay, now let's imagine you have multi-threaded application who is calling this particular object. Okay, 100 thread calls that particular clone operation. What you end up in? MB, right? But what was expected? I don't need this 4.5 MB. Probably after alteration, my object will be end up in 1 MB only. Okay, so I was expecting 1 MB per object, end up in 100 MB of data, and what I end up in, not 450 MB, not 4500, 450 MB. So think about it. If my JVM size is 256, I calculated entire my object sizes with 1 MB. I calculated okay, 100 MB is sufficient for me. I go ahead and implemented. Object was 4.5 MB. I created a clone, end up in 450 MB. I got out of MB, which was not designed. The JVM was not designed for that. So unnecessary, you will have lot of object creation, first thing, object maintenance, JVM heap size increment, unnecessary, because you are anyway altering that particular object, right? So because of this kind of thing, prototype pattern only should be used whenever it's really needed. Okay. Generally, if you have that heavy object, make it as a singleton object. Okay. And use it whenever you want it, but making it as a prototype and creating clones, sometimes it's cumbersome. Okay. How to check JVM size? Okay, so there are different ways to do that. First thing, the best thing you can do a check is in your Eclipse. There are properties called XMS and XMX. So these this is JVM minimum size and this is JVM maximum size. In Eclipse it's mentioned, and the file you should see called eclipse.ini. So this is a file where these particular things will be mentioned, and this is your maximum JVM size. This is onload JVM size. Okay. in eclipse.ini. Check that. Okay. If you mention that the interviewer may ask you about the factory pattern and they may ask about observer pattern, do they work together? I mean, there is any correlation between them? No, there is no. So think about this. Factory pattern is giving you an object on selection, okay? Object on certain condition. Observer pattern will give you no, not observer, but this guy. Prototype pattern gives you a clone of an object. Okay. If there is a possibility that the returning object by factory pattern itself is a heavy object and you are returning a clone of it, it's absolutely possible that you can work them together. Okay. But here this is just a theoretical explanation, but practically you will not have such scenarios. Till date I haven't find anything. Okay. But yes, theoretically, absolutely you can merge multiple patterns together. There is no problem in that. Okay. Sure, questions are awesome. Okay, so let's try to cover a very small pattern. I will not start on command and adapter. That's gonna take time. So let's take an example of Java reality. Prototype observer factory. This is done. This prototype pattern using singleton. Prototype using singleton. Prototype using singleton. Yeah, you can. Let's see that if you have this heavy object is singleton object. Absolutely, you can use singleton pattern within prototype pattern and return with the factory pattern. You can merge multiple patterns as you want depending on your project requirements. Okay. Sure, there is no restriction on you. Once you are the Java programmer, it's your decision how to do it. Of course, it's architectural decisions as well. So whatever you want to code, just because you know this pattern very well, every solution must not be forcefully embedded into that particular pattern. No, that should not happen. Because I know singleton, every class I create is singleton. No, that's not the proper way of doing it. Okay, and don't do that. People do that. I know. People know command pattern. They try to find every solution with command pattern. That's not the real thing. Search for it. Google it. Take it patiently. But using proper pattern only will give you a proper answer. Okay. Okay, so let's really think about a DAO pattern. DAO is not a pattern as such. It's actually a way of implementing things. There is no class level hierarchy or structure we're going to create. So people, you understand that in MVC framework, we saw little glitch, little things about what is model, what is view, and what is controller. So we already saw that. So let's imagine an example. Let's consider an example called layers. So I will tell you what are the application layers you have. So first layer is called a service layer, and this is the layer where you get the request. Okay, this is also called as controller layer. Okay, basically it's controller and it's also called as service layer. Okay, so this is the client request. This service layer or controller layer actually calls business objects. Okay, and these business objects are generally singleton. Now I can use this word as a verb and you singletonize it and so on. Okay, so this is singleton, and this BO is a business object, has a logic, all the business logic in it. Okay, and few people call this as a business service. So do not get confused between service layer and business service. Okay, these are two different things. Okay, people who have EJB background generally call this as a business service. People who have web services background generally call this as a business object, and there is people who do not have any background generally call this as a modern object. So if people have different backgrounds, call it differently doesn't mean that their class is different. Okay, so this is business service as well, and now this business service is responsible for calling something called as DAO, data access object. Okay, which has your either JDBC or it has your Hibernate. Whatever you have for accessing the database will be here. Okay, your Spring JDBC, any kind of JDBC architecture which is interacting with the database.
So many of our students have given testimonials on how our training programs are. You will find them on kudzu.com and on our website h2kinfosys.com. On our website h2kinfosys.com, you will also find more detailed information on who we are, the courses that we offer, what each course covers. Also, if you're interested in a demo program, please register on our homepage on the left-hand side. Just give us more information about yourself and we will send you a link for a demo class. The demo class is absolutely free. Experience our commitment by just attending an orientation workshop at no cost. Our team of faculty and advisors are here to guide you with the right information. If you still have more questions, please feel free to call us. Call us at 770-777-1269. This is a United States number. If you're calling from the UK, call us at 020-337-17615. You can also email us at training@h2kinfosys.com or h2kinfosys@gmail.com. Thank you for watching our videos. We wish you a great career in information technology.